Hey everyone, so today I'm going to show you exactly how to use the TradeBuddy trading checklist to get a higher win rate, more confidence with your trading, more freedom with your trading, and most importantly, more profits. In fact, these are the same strategies and principles that I and my students used to bank over 100% on CAPR in a single day. That's right, in a single day. Let's get started. So the very first thing that you need to do as a trader is that you need to identify and understand what your trading niche is going to be. Because the simple fact is that there are over 13,000 stocks available on the US stock market alone. There's ETFs, options, Forex, crypto. There's so many things to trade, and you need to be able to specify and identify your specific niche. For us, and the purpose of this video, that niche is going to be the small cap penny stock day trading. So this is basically stocks that range from anywhere between 50 cents and $10, and we usually trade them within one day or a few days. There are three main components within the TradeBuddy trading checklist. The first section is so that you can identify the parameters. The second section is so you can verify that the setup fits your strategy. And the third section is just a section that helps you create your trading plan before you even get into the stock. If you want to follow along with me and get your own copy of the TradeBuddy trading checklist, feel free to click the first link down below to get a download of this sent to your inbox right away. So now we're going to hop over to my computer and I'm going to give you guys a detailed breakdown of how to go through those three sections of the checklist. So CAPR was a stock that was running last Wednesday, had really good news. So here we can see CAPR popped up in pre-market. It was mentioned in the TradeBuddy chat room right when news came out. Also, it showed up on my equity feed and Trade Ideas scanner. So let me just bring up my equity feed real quick. So CAPR news came out, and news reports 100% survival in critical COVID-19 patients treated with CAP1002, which is their drug. So obviously very good news. So going through the checklist, there's obviously a few parameters that we need to fill out. This is the first area of identifying the parameters. So first off, what's the symbol? Symbol is CAPR. Average daily volume. This is something that I use a Thinkorswim script for. And I can't show it now because obviously it's a week later. But on the morning of CAPR, when the news came out, the average daily volume, which is the average over the past 30 days, was only 50,000 shares. Very low average daily volume. The float was only 8.56 million. That is a low float in my opinion. And of course, the headline we just copy paste there. 100% survival rate, and you can see I bolded that because that's obviously very good news. So from there we get the basics. We know the symbol, we know the float, we know it has a low average daily volume, and we know it has really good news. Next thing we want to do is just start to grade the stock. So the first section, it says daily chart shows low overhead resistance. So what does that mean? Low overhead resistance. Basically, there's two main things I look for on the daily chart. Number one, I want to see low average daily volume. We already know that CAPR has low volume because of the parameter that we had filled out earlier. It tells us that. Main thing that I want to verify is, are there any long-term bag holders trapped on this stock? And when it has a low average daily volume, that just generally means that, people don't trade this stock so actively, so there's less chance of there being lots of long-term bag holders. This stock has low overhead resistance because, it doesn't have that much volume up over it, and it doesn't seem like it's going to have lots of bag holders in it. So on this one, I gave it a grade of 11 out of 15. Now, one thing I want to make very clear too is there is no strict grading system for this. It's kind of just what you feel like it should be out of the score possible. This will come over time as you use the checklist more often, and once you start to recognize the signs of a strong runner, you will learn how to grade this more effectively. The main purpose of this is just to get you in the process of looking at these criteria instead of just hopping into a trade because you're chasing on FOMO. When you have a checklist like this, you approach the stock a lot more structured and you know all the variables of it and you know exactly how good of a play it can be. Actual numbers themselves, like the score I give, don't give it too much thought. So next one, obvious daily chart support / resistance levels, 20 points possible. So for this one here, main thing I want to see is very obvious peaks, very obvious valleys. I want to be able to quickly identify exactly where support and resistance is. And if we look at the 1-year chart, we have a very obvious 1-year high at 885. That to me is very obvious resistance, which means that if it can break out above that level, it's a very clear breakout. Everyone's going to see it and it's going to cause increased buying volume. So for this one, I gave it a pretty good score, 17 out of 20. Next up, low float, 15 points possible. Of course, lower the better in my opinion. Like if this was a micro float, which is less than 1 million shares, I would have given it a 15 out of 15. But because it's up there around 8.5, I gave it a grade of 10. Market environment. So this one, basically market environment, you have to consider the bigger picture of what's going on in the economy. I mean, we all know that right now the market is in turmoil because of COVID-19. It's the main thing in the headlines, and the main stocks we've seen spike are stocks that happen to work within that COVID-19 space. And as you can see from the news, CAPR announces a 100% survival rate from COVID-19. That is right in the middle of the market environment, and that's a 7 out of 7. Volume compared to the average daily volume. This one can be a tiny bit tricky. It mainly depends on when you look at the volume, because obviously volume will be higher at the end of the day when compared to early on in the day. It's pretty easy though. You can see that the average daily volume on this stock was 50,000. If you just look at the first 5-minute candle from Wednesday, the very first candle that opened up at market open had traded about 4.6 million shares. You can see there's a very big difference there, right? You have 50,000 shares average daily volume. And then on this day, the first 5 minutes, it traded 4.6 million shares. Very large volume compared to the average. That was a good score. I gave that a 20 out of 20. Strength of news. This one, you just have to look at the news itself and pick apart the keywords. And of course, we know CAPR, very good news, 100% survival rate. That is very strong. And I gave that, I believe, a 13 out of 13. Lastly, I want to see large pre-market range, because usually when a stock shows me big range in pre-market, it gives us a very good basis of support and resistance. And we can kind of just judge that, okay, if this stock can run $2 per share in pre-market, if it breaks out market open, it wouldn't be unrealistic to see it run another $2 per share. So I want to see big range because that means that the stock can move more at market open. You can see on CAPR, the pre-market range was from 250s all the way up to $7. That's a range of about $4.50 per share. Very big range, and I gave that a good score, 10 out of 10. So then you just add all these numbers up. It should give you a total out of 100. For this, I graded it an 88 out of 100, which is obviously a very good score. The higher the score, the higher my conviction is. And I typically base my size on my checklist scores. So if I have a very good score, like here on CAPR, I would use more size. If the score is only a 60 out of 100, but it still is first green day on news, I'll use a bit less size. End of the day, main purpose of the checklist is just to get you in the habit of looking at all those pieces of the puzzle so then you can see the bigger picture. Last thing I want to do real quick is just look on BAM SEC to see if there's dilution. And you can see here on BAM SEC, they did have an offering this afternoon, But last week, last Wednesday, there was no recent offerings, so it was in the clear. From there, we want to make our trading plan. So this trading strategy is called the first green day on news, A+, previous resistance holding as new support. That's how I had planned CAPR. And the way I got that entry was just using levels on the daily chart. You can see previous resistance right here has the potential to hold as new support. My target is going to be the next resistance level, which here, the next main one we had was in the 880s and 730s. And above that, if it can break out. My stop on this was 360, risking about 10%. My profit target was 125%. My loss, 10%, meaning my risk to reward ratio is 12.5, which means I could take the same trade. I could lose 12.5 times in a row. And on next trade after that, I would make back all of my losses and go into a profit if the trade works out. Meaning that, even if this stock doesn't work one time, even if it doesn't work 2 times, even if it doesn't work 5 times in a row, once you get that winner, it is a profitable trade. And this is how you have to view your trading. You can never be too caught up on just one trade. You have to look at the bigger picture of things. You have to look at your trading statistics. And having a profitable risk to reward ratio can really boost your odds of success. So that's basically it. We have identified the parameters. We have verified and checked that the stock fits our trading strategy. And then lastly, we made a trading plan. So now all the pieces are in place. We are ready to take this trade. So that was an example of a really good stock and how you could have traded a good stock using the TradeBuddy checklist. But now let's look into an example of a bad stock and see how the checklist can help us avoid taking bad trades. So here's one stock that I see mentioned all the time, especially from new traders who join TradeBuddy, not to their own fault, but here's TOPS. And if you are a new trader, one of the main things that most new traders learn is that volume is very important. So they tend to believe that as long as a stock has volume, then it's a good trade, right? But here's going to be an example of why a stock like TOPS is not a good trade 99% of the time. So we have the trading checklist all cleaned up. Let's put in our symbol, TOPS. Average daily volume, you can find this on Finviz if you don't have Thinkorswim. So on finviz.com, you just type in the ticker symbol. There's TOPS, press enter. And you can see average volume down here, 40 million shares. It's pretty high average daily volume when compared to CAPR, which only had 50,000 shares. So we enter that into our checklist. Float of TOPS, you can see float 186 million shares. It's not the 8 million shares that we saw on CAPR. And news headline, let me just see if TOPS happened to have any news today. I don't think it did. TOPS, no news today. So news, none. Okay, so now we can go into the actual process of grading the stock. So daily chart shows low overhead resistance. Well, the first thing I see right off the bat is very big average daily volume, and you can see that lots of the volume is above the current price. You can view this graphically by using the volume profile tool. And you can see that there's lots of volume that is above the current price of 22 cents. What that tells me is that there is lots of bag holder resistance all in this area of traders who are holding a red position, and the minute that the stock gets into their entry price, they're going to be compelled to sell. A very basic concept of bag holders. Real quick, for example, imagine you bought the breakout of the stock 60 cents. It topped out 62 cents. You never cut your loss, and now it's down to 20 cents. You're down 40 cents per share on your stock. You're going to hold out, wait for it to rebound. It does rebound, and you wake up one day, it's at 60 cents. Now you're break even. you're going to be pretty compelled on selling to break even, right? Because you don't want to experience the pain of being down 40 cents a share again. That is bag holder resistance, and that's why I really hate stocks that have big volume above the current price. So I would grade this a 2 out of 15 because it shows overhead resistance and it shows a lot of volume on that overhead resistance. Plus, if we just zoom out of the chart, you can see, notice the price axis here. Notice how, as we zoom out, it gets to like extremely crazy prices. Here it says the stock was $60,000 back in 2017. That wasn't the case. The reason why it shows that is because TOPS has done so much dilution and so many reverse splits, which means that there is a lot of hidden volume that is trapped. So a very low score. Next up, obvious daily chart support resistance levels. I would say not really. While yes, we do have this obvious level here at 60 cents, you can see it only tested that one time and it doesn't seem to test the same level multiple times. It just keeps having resistance lower and lower, partly due to the fact that they do so much dilution. So this, I would grade, I don't know, a 5. Low float, I would give this a 0 because it is a big float, 108 million shares. Market environment, I mean, well, they have no news. The company itself has to do with shipping, and right now there's not much trading going on because of lockdown. So it's a pretty bad score. I give it like a 2. Volume compared to the average daily volume. So let's just look at the volume from today. Over the entire day, TOPS traded 16 million shares through the entire day. The average daily volume is 40 million. So even through the entire trading day, it didn't have more volume than the average, which means that it's not in high demand. Whereas CAPR, average daily volume was around 50,000, and in the first 5 minutes it traded nearly 5 million shares. That shows really big demand, whereas here, give it like a 2. Strength of news, it had none, 0. Large pre-market range, I mean, not really. It doesn't really have any range in pre-market. I give it like a 2. So we added that score, 2, 4, 6, 8, 13. 13 out of 100. Do you think this is a trade that you might want to tank? Or do you think it doesn't fit the strategy, so you might want to save your money and go elsewhere? Very good example of how the trade by day trading checklist can save you time because you can avoid taking bad trades, and it can increase your win rate because you're not going to take those obviously bad trades. So there you have it. There is a quick little guide on how to use the trade by day trading checklist to increase your win rate, increase your profitability, and save you time because you won't take so many wasted trades. It's a very good tool to use, especially if you're a new trader, just to help you gain the discipline and the habit of going through some sort of breakdown checklist prior to entering a trade. And it's also a very good way to plan your trade before you get in. I think it's a very useful tool to use, and I would recommend it to anybody that is trying to day trade small cap stocks. So if you enjoyed this lesson and you saw value out of it, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, also hit the like button, help me out against the YouTube algorithm. So real quick, question of the day. I want to find out what you guys like to trade. Do you like to trade options or stocks? Let me know in the comments down below. I'd love to see your responses. That being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.